Most people think astral projection is just about floating out of your body or flying around your neighborhood, but that's not why people keep doing it for decades. Those of us who've been practicing for close to 30 years don't keep coming back just to fly around. We keep coming back because of what it does to us, because of how it changes the way we experience reality, fear, confidence, and even our understanding of death. My name is Stephen Carva, and I help people consciously explore outside the physical realm through altered states of consciousness. Today, I want to talk about something that doesn't get discussed enough. We get so caught up in techniques and in the how that we forget to talk about the why. Why astral projection is actually worth doing in the first place. A lot of people get curious about astral projection because, well, it sounds cool or mysterious. Some people come to it out of fear, some out of curiosity, some because they've had spontaneous experiences they couldn't explain. But once you move past that surface level fascination, astral projection offers very real, very practical benefits that change how you experience life here while you're awake. So I want to break down what I see as the 5 biggest benefits of astral projection based on my own experience and what I've seen again and again with people I work with. So let's get right to it. The first benefit is the most obvious one, but also the one people tend to underestimate. Astral projection gives you access to experiences and environments that simply don't exist in physical reality. So one of the biggest misconceptions people have is that when you project, you're somehow limited to the physical layer of reality, that you come out of your body and you're basically just floating around this world, visiting rooms, places, or people. And yes, that can happen. That layer exists, but it's only one small part of what's available. The non-physical isn't a single place. There are different planes, environments, and layers of experience that have nothing to do with physical geography, entire worlds that don't follow physical rules, places where distance doesn't work the same way, where movement is driven by intention, where perception feels radically different from waking life. So when I talk about exploring new places, I'm not talking about hovering over your house or your neighborhood. I am talking about environments, landscapes, and scenarios that have no physical equivalent at all. Places you could never visit with the body. And these experiences feel real. They're not symbolic or imagined. They're immersive in a way that normal dreams usually aren't. And in some cases will feel even more real than this physical reality. Once you've had even one of these experiences, your internal reference of what reality is completely changes. You realize that consciousness isn't confined to physical space, and problems feel smaller, limitations feel less absolute, because you've directly experienced that existence is layered, and that what we call physical reality is just one slice of something much, much bigger. The second benefit builds directly on that. Astral projection becomes a direct experiential way to study consciousness. Most people learn about consciousness intellectually. They read books, they listen to theories, they debate whether consciousness comes from the brain or from somewhere else. But astral projection moves this out of theory and into direct experience. When you project, you're observing consciousness operating without the usual physical feedback loop. And the deeper you go, the more you practice, the more you begin to understand how everything is connected. Not as a concept, but as something you know because you've experienced it. And this is a practice where the more you experience, the more you understand. And it's something Robert Monroe talked about often in his books. He emphasized the difference between believing, thinking, and knowing. Astral projection takes you out of belief entirely and puts you into knowing through direct experience. You start to notice how intention drives movement, how focus stabilizes perception, how your emotional state shapes the environment you experience. These aren't ideas anymore. They are things you feel directly, moment by moment. And that knowing creates freedom, a very real sense of freedom. Because once you've experienced awareness outside the usual constraints, you stop feeling trapped inside a single way of perceiving reality. Now, before moving on, let me tell you something. The 2 benefits I've just described are already more than enough to make astral projection worth pursuing. They are the exact reasons I started in the first place. And they're what kept me coming back to this practice year after year. The third benefit is one people don't usually expect, but it's extremely practical. Astral projection naturally increases confidence in real life because you've already learned how to move beyond fear. When you've spent time in unfamiliar environments, navigated experiences without a physical body, and stayed calm in states that would normally trigger panic or uncertainty, something just shifts internally. You start to trust yourself more. A lot of fear from daily life comes from uncertainty, from not knowing how you'll react when something unfamiliar shows up. Astral projection trains you to remain aware, calm, and intentional in completely unknown territory. Awareness becomes your anchor. And when challenges show up in waking life, you already have a reference point. You've been in situations where there was no physical feedback at all, and you were still grounded. That makes everyday challenges feel far more manageable. Now, I want to be very clear about something. This isn't about being put into dangerous situations in the astral. Not at all. Astral projection isn't about risk or negativity. It's about becoming an explorer. When you explore environments where nothing is familiar, where you can't rely on physical senses, and where awareness itself is what keeps you stable, you stop being afraid of uncertainty. You become comfortable not knowing exactly what's going to happen next. That experience carries over directly into waking life. You approach new situations with more openness. You are less reactive, less intimidated by the unknown because you've trained your awareness to remain steady in unfamiliar territory. Now, the fourth benefit is a very personal one, and for many people, a very healing one. Astral projection can also act as a conscious return to a place where you feel safe and expanded. And this is actually one of the reasons I was drawn to it in the first place. When I first started having astral experiences around the age of 12, they were spontaneous at first. And all I wanted at that time was a place that felt safe, a place where I could step out of everything, because the moment I was out of the physical framework, a lot of the mental and emotional noise simply wasn't there anymore. That type of experience just stays with you. Over time, you realize that astral projection isn't just an experience you have, it's a reminder of a state that you can return to, a state where awareness feels broader, quieter, and more stable than your day-to-day thinking mind. It teaches you that safety isn't always something you find in circumstance. It's something you access through state, through awareness. So when life gets overwhelming later on, when stress or pressure builds up, you're not desperately trying to escape your life. You're just remembering that you're not confined to it. You come back feeling grounded and present because you've reconnected with the version of yourself that isn't defined by roles, timelines, or expectations. That's why this benefit goes much deeper than escape. It's about remembering that you have access to a wider internal space. And once you know that space exists, it becomes a quiet source of stability that carries into everything else you do. And finally, the fifth benefit is probably one of the most profound. Astral projection removes fear around death. And it doesn't do it through belief or theory, it does it through experience. When you experienced awareness function independently of the physical body, the idea that consciousness simply stops becomes very hard to take seriously. Death stops feeling like an ending and starts feeling more like a transition. But it goes even deeper than that, because through astral projection, many people will also experience interaction, communication, or presence with other forms of consciousness. Other beings, other intelligences, other expressions of awareness that clearly exist outside the physical framework. And whether you interpret those experiences symbolically or literally, they reinforce the same realization that consciousness is not isolated and it doesn't depend on a physical body to exist. That alone changes everything. You stop feeling alone in existence. You stop seeing consciousness as something fragile or temporary, and when that fear dissolves, life actually becomes more valuable because fear no longer dominates your decisions. You're able to live more fully when you're not operating from the background anxiety of non-existence. You become more present, more intentional, more willing to experience life deeply because you're no longer constantly protecting yourself from an imagined ending. For many people, this is the benefit that quietly changes everything. They don't walk around thinking about death all the time. They just notice that a layer of fear that used to be there isn't anymore. And that freedom affects how they live, how they love, how they show up in the world. All right, that's it for today. I hope this made the deeper benefits behind astral projection a lot clearer, maybe even give you a reason to actually start practicing it yourself. If you haven't yet, if you want to explore this further, then just check the description below. I have guides that you can download and a lot of content available on my Patreon. There's plenty there for free that anyone can check out as well. And the more in-depth materials inside are for the higher tiers if you're interested. I can go much deeper into all of these benefits in future videos, so you'll want to make sure you're subscribed when those come out. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon.
Because I am more than physical matter, I can perceive that which is greater than the physical world.